Cool. Let me pop this down. There we go. Cool. Welcome, guys. Welcome. I'm happy to see so many of you guys have turned up today. This is Christina Smith. She is the best in the world. She's wonderful. I'm going to let her do a good introduction, but I'm very, very excited. When she proposed the topic, I was like, yes, this is going to be amazing, not just selfishly for myself, but for everybody as well. I'm really, really, really excited to see the mindset shifts that you guys are going to have. And I want you to think about putting the situations that she suggests or she might give and thinking how you can apply those things to your life, or think maybe in the past what happened, or in future, if anything happens, how you can use these skills moving forward. I want you to use this episode for the rest of your life, essentially. So Christina is always going to be in your ear and in your head. So Christina, do you want to do a introduction about yourself and your work?
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I work specifically usually with midlife women because I think it's the most exciting time of life. If you don't agree, feel free to let me know in the chat. But I love midlife. I think it's the greatest time to like reinvent ourselves. And just tell you a little bit about me. I'm somewhat of an American nomad. I don't leave the country, but think I'm en route to live in all the states at some point in my life. And I was a woman who checked all the boxes. So my mother had this list of boxes for me that if I were to check all these things, I was going to be happy. And this does come back around to health, so I promise you. So we're going to talk about all of these things. But in my mid 30s, I had sacrificed all the years to like work really hard, go to college, get the job, get the husband in the house, and the all the things that were supposed to make me happy. And in my mid 30s, when I checked all those boxes, I was probably the most depressed that I ever was in my life. Because I really identified myself with some things that were really, really unhealthy. And we'll talk about those later. But I had to go through this huge path of therapy and all the other things in order to really start understanding how can I be so unhappy when I have all the things that are supposed to make me happy, right? Like I was supposed to be happy when I got there. I got there and now I'm not happy. And I used to blame myself, like I'm just not grateful enough. I'm just not being positive enough. I am just going, there's something wrong with me is really what I would come to. And I think I cried on the way to work for like a year before I was like, something's not right here and I've got to change this. And it was about the way that I was identifying myself and, trying to do that Wonder Woman thing where, of course, I can work full time and I can volunteer and I can go back to school and have children and be a good wife and do all of those things that was on this little checklist. But today I am a midlife coach. I really focus on confidence. So if confidence is something that you're interested in, that's great. If not, just the fact that you're in this group, I'm assuming that there are some shifts that you want to see in your life that maybe even seem too big to really dream about. Like you can't really imagine yourself as those people or as that future person, then this is the perfect talk for you. So that's basically who I am. Um, I'd love to know where y'all are. I know that Faye was telling us, but I'd love to know that as well. So if you can pop that in the chat, that would be great.
I want to thank you, Christina.
Yeah.
Coughed into the mic. But I want to I want to thank you for that actually, because that's something that I really resonate with as well. Um, Personally, I went through not kids or anything, but very similar. That kind of I've ticked the boxes. Why aren't I, where I'm supposed to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically? Yes, I have, I've got the masters, I've got the degree, I've got the house, and da da da. So why aren't I feeling like what I think I should be feeling? And I'm very lucky. I'm grateful that that happened in my 20s. And now, like a decade on, I I I don't know if you feel the same, Christina, but I also don't recognize that person that I was. And I'm like so detached that it's like an out of body experience when I'm looking back on it. So I completely resonate when you're talking. I was like, this is like my life. She lives my life.
Yeah, I'm in my late 40s now, so looking back at my 20s, I just did a life review and it makes me cringe a little bit. I'm like, oh,
Why did
how
I do that to
misguided
myself?
I was in my 20s. And nothing against anybody else who's in their 20s. I'm sure that you guys are living it and having it awesome, but it was not great for me.
Yeah. And I
So
think like if you
yeah,
can get this early, there's any point you can change your life. But if you can get this early enough, you've got a longer time to experience the living, I guess.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The process that I'm going to take you through today is going to, it's applicable to anybody. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be about confidence. It doesn't have to be about health. It doesn't have to be about being midlife. I just think midlife is great because I think it's when a lot of women wake up and start saying, I've spent the first 4 decades of my life doing what I think I should. And now I get to choose what I actually want to do. And that's like a huge difference in our lives. And if we could get that in 20s, I mean, I would have such a different life if I would have had this mindset when I was in my 20s, for sure. So it definitely can work with anybody. And the reason it works is because what I learned from checking all my boxes was if I want to be happy when I get there, I have to be happy now, right? It's almost like when people say, if you want to be the CEO of a company, and even though you're starting in the mailroom, like you have to see yourself as that CEO. But for me, what happened is when I saw myself, I would act as if, right? And so I don't know if you use the phrase fake it till you'll make it, but it is not my favorite phrase. I wish it would be banished because every time I ever tried that, all I felt was fake.
Hmm.
And so I felt like I was like, oh, here I go, putting on my worldly mask for everybody else, but this isn't actually who I am. I wasn't like integrating that into my identity. It was more like a show. And so what I want us to do is really decide like, who are we? What do we stand for? And most importantly, what do we feel? Because as much as we try to deny it, I'm a Gen Xer, so feelings were not important to the Gen X generation, or at least according to our parents, right? Like, that's not something to be angry at. That's not something to be sad at. We were told how to feel or to just ignore them and put our big girl pants on, right? And just keep moving forward. And that's very much how I was raised. However, as a coach, I think feeling is one of the most informing things that we have. Um, and it's much greater to me than thinking. And I know that our culture is all about thinking. Let's find the logical, the practical, what makes most efficient, productive, all of those things. And so our brain is so smart that it thinks it's the smartest thing. But we have to remember we're still animals and we're still beings. And so we have this feeling and this spiritual part of us that needs to be connected to as well, which unfortunately culture doesn't always getting more there, but doesn't always reward as much as our thinking brains. So we have to start rewarding them in our own way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that the people here have lots of whys as to why they're here, why they are on this path with Faye, right? To be healthier. Some of it might be losing weight, some of it might be feeling more energy, feeling more like their old self, right? Like, just for me, it's always like health is always about energy. I want enough energy to do all of the things that I want. But you all might have your own whys. And I hope that you do. I also have personal whys of why I would want to be healthier because I want to be around for my grandchildren that don't exist yet, but one day will, I hope. And I want to be able to work for a very long time. That's not everybody's goal, but I love what I do, so I'm perfectly happy with that. I want to be able to be around to impact people. I want to have the energy to go speak here and speak there and have energy, right? And so that is my whys, but I'm assuming that you all have already, even if you haven't written them down, you have some whys in your head, right? A lot of us, could be pre-diabetic. We don't want to go into that diabetes category. That's a huge thing. I want to be able to hike when I'm 80. Like, that might be your thing. So we all have these whys, and often in the past we've created these vision boards. Anybody create a vision board before? Or 10? And I love a vision board because, visual kind of brings us back into our body. And yet, I feel like we have to go deeper on the vision board because there's a reason why we put all of that stuff on the vision board. And the reason is because we think when we achieve it, we're going to feel a certain way. So when I started thinking about this and I thought about my last vision board, there was like a cabin in the woods. Some people put a mansion, but that's not really me. I don't like cleaning, but like a tiny cabin in the woods with a lot of land, right? Like that's what I would put on my vision board. And what does that mean to me? Like what am I actually trying to get out of that? And what it is a feeling of security, maybe of connection, because I want people to come and enjoy my land. Maybe there's a feeling of love because I want to caretake lots of animals, right? Like it could be all of those things, but each of us, what is really beautiful about this, each of us have our own reasons. So forget who said it. It was something like Einstein, I believe, that said something about desire is the core of who we are. If you want to know your truth, you have to know what you actually desire. That is the thing that defines us the most in truth, not our fears, not the things that we're running away from, but desire. What we actually crave in life is actually who we are. And before we go into this process of like starting to uncover these feelings, I want to talk about surviving versus thriving because this is what drives us. Our human brains and our human bodies are like 90% of our DNA is just set to survive, right? And the difference between surviving and thriving for me is that surviving is running away from something that we don't want, right? The bear chasing us, whatever fears and grief we are afraid of experiencing. We're running away from things. Thriving is when we're actually running towards something that we want. Surviving is much, much easier for human beings than thriving. It's why some people don't change their habits until their health is in jeopardy, right? Because now I'm running away from illness instead of actually just taking my energy and running towards wellness. Okay, so, and the reason why surviving is so important um, is because our brains, are risk managers and they're always looking for the things that are risky. The truth is, in our lives, if you're sitting here on this Zoom, there's no bear chasing you. There's nothing really risking your life. And so we start confusing safety with comfort. And by midlife, the women that I work with, they've created a really nice little comfort zone because remember, they've checked all those boxes and they're okay, right? I mean, could they want for more? Absolutely. That's why they get coaching. But their box is really comfortable, right? And I think that since the pandemic, we can all experience this cozy box. I mean, I remember the first time somebody was like, come to a party, and I was like, ooh, that's a lot of people. Like, I'm not used to that, right? So we get used to these comfort zones, and our brain starts assessing risk of safety as the same as risk of comfort. So we find it like harder to kind of stretch out, which I think maybe that's one great thing from my 20s is in my 20s, I would have done any stupid thing, smart or stupid, I would have just done it, right? But when I got into my 40s, I was like, well, seems like a lot. So I could just stay in my comfort zone. But that also means that I'm not growing because in our comfort zone, we don't grow. Unfortunately, discomfort is where the growth is. So I always have my clients ask themselves, because if they're trying to really stretch into dreams, there's going to be times where it feels really uncomfortable. I might be a little uncomfortable talking in front of a bunch of people I don't know, right? But we stretch into that. And that's where the growth is. That's how we start getting really confident and proud about ourselves and start trusting that we're going to show up to the occasion as well as we possibly can. So discomfort comes with thriving as well. I just want you to hear that, because sometimes people think, oh, well, if I'm thriving, I wouldn't have these problems. No, thriving means I am using the skill of confidence to know that when these things come along, I'm not going to make mountains out of molehills. I'm going to be able to handle them and just move on. That to me is thriving and being able to stay focused on what we want. And so that's the big difference. And why I'm talking about it is that surviving, we're usually focused on what we don't want, right? The thing that we're running away from. In thriving, we're focused on the thing that we actually do want. It doesn't mean those sharks don't exist. It just means that we're not focused on them until they become a safety issue, right? And that's when we can focus on them. So today, what I'm trying to do is shift your focus from, all those things. Because I remember when I actually became a health coach like 14 years ago. It wasn't for me. So I'm so glad that there's people like Faye out there. Um, But for me, health has always been a bit of a struggle. And when I had gut issues and they were like, oh, give up the gluten and the sugar. And I was just like, oh, and I was the kind of gal who woke up in the morning with a Pepsi and some Doritos. So this was a big stretch to ask me no sugar and no gluten. Um, and I would stay focused on that. Okay, well, I can't have that and I can't have that. And this is the same thing that happens when I talk to women when they come to me and they ask about confidence. And I ask them, what 3 things would you change if you had a magic wand? And they look at me and they go, well, I don't want this relationship conflict, and I don't want to have this thing at work, and I don't want to. That's surviving. That's where our focus is. So we want to get into thriving, which means that I want to have an awesome relationship. I want to have a work life that I feel peaceful and productive, or whatever the thing is, right? What is it that we actually want? The not this, that definitely starts informing our understanding of what we want, but it's not what we actually want. That's what I call getting to shore. It's like you're drowning and you're just trying to solve the problems that you have by getting to shore and just being able to breathe. And I want women to really think about, what is the castle in the sky? Like, not just getting to shore, but, getting all the way to where you want to go. Where do you think your full potential could go? And this is again with health, right? Because I know so many people who are like, oh, well, I just don't want to be a pre-diabetes anymore. I just don't want to have my size go up anymore. I just don't want, this extra weight, or for me, it's my tummy. I don't want the jiggle in my belly, right? Like, instead, I want you to start thinking about, but what does it actually look and feel like to be healthy? Where am I? Oh, good. Oh, good, good. I always go through this faster than I think. I tend to skip some things, but I feel it out. So I feel good about that. Okay, so where we focus. Again, discomfort is going to be part of thriving. So if we're going for something that we truly want, there's going to be discomfort. Like if we think about any career, I want to be a football player or the greatest singer on earth, right? Like there's a lot of failures and discomfort getting there. So I don't want us to think that every time we're uncomfortable that I'm doing it wrong. Because even if we're focused on what we really want, we're probably going to experience a great discomfort because we're doing things that we never did before. I know some people call it imposter syndrome, but it's really, I have to remind myself I'm just learning. I'm just learning, right? And so if we see it from that perspective, it's a little better. Awesome. I have notes because if not, I will go so tangential that you'll be like, where did we even go? And it's 2 hours later. Okay, so I was talking about desire and how desire is in our body. I know, again, your brain's going to say, I know what you desire. Here's the list. And that is great. If you already have some goals that are out there, that's fantastic. That's the beginning of our mental vision board. If you don't have goals, that's perfectly fine too. I usually explore with my clients about dreaming, and dreaming can do anything, which is why we use visualization. So we're going to do a little visualization in a minute. Um, it does not, the goal doesn't even have to feel realistic. That's not the point of it, right? So for this exercise, we're going to imagine we were in our healthiest space, right? Like we're jumping forward 5 or 10 years and we have this really, really healthy outlook, right? And we're showing up as a healthy person. We see ourselves as this healthy person and all of those whys that you have, right? Why you want to be healthier. We're going to imagine ourselves like that already. Now, a few things about visualization because it freaks some people out, especially if they're not used to being in their body or their feelings or spiritually connected, whatever that looks like to them. Is that anything or nothing is of value? So some people have a hard time visualizing. That's okay too. Some people say that I was visualizing, but my brain went somewhere else no matter what you said. That's great too. Visualization is a chance for us to put our brains away and that practical thing that says, oh, that's not possible. Don't think about that. So if you are a thinker, we're going to do a little body scan first just to kind of get us into our bodies. But try to let go of the logical part of you that's going to say, no, no, that's not what I want. I should want this, or I think I want that. Like just allow whatever comes up to come up, even if it's, I often see flying zebras. There's curiosity there. So we're going to be curious instead of judgmental. Um, if you are listening to the recording, I always suggest that you do this several times with different moods because often the mood or the attitude that we're in at the time is going to influence what it is that we visualize. Um, so we're going to let that okay. What's most important to me, as you've been hearing, is feeling, which is why I'm so glad that we did this on Valentine's Day, because I was like, desire and feeling and identity. I love all of that stuff. So, yeah, so what's most important is feeling. And if feelings are hard for you, because they are for a lot of people who come to me, they're like, I wasn't allowed, I don't know the difference between my feelings. Just notice the sensations in your body, and what comes up, because that's literally all feelings are, different sensations that happen in our body. Cool. So everybody ready for this? Okay. And you can do this sitting up, but if, laying down is your jam, feel free to go do that. Okay. So let's have you close your eyes. If that's comfortable. If that's not comfortable because maybe you have kids behind you or something, like just a soft gaze is fine as well. Or if you're listening to this as a recording, don't do this while you're driving. So close your eyes. And I want you to take 3 deep breaths. And as you breathe in to each of those breaths, just feel the expansion within your body and focus on those breaths. Breathing out, maybe let go of any tension. We're only going to be here for like, I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes. So whatever's on your to-do list can wait. Just become present with where you are in your breath. In order to get into our bodies, just do a little body scan all the way from the top of your head, just noticing what your scalp feels like, what your forehead feels like, your ears, maybe drop your ears down, loosen your face and those muscles that are in your face. Noticing all the way down your body where there might be tension and trying to let it go. Notice if your tummy is all tight or if it's relaxed. And just notice what's going on in your body, focused right here. If you can recognize any feelings, just notice them, don't judge them. Just recognize them. And as we're in our body, what does health or energy look like for you? If you saw yourself in the future as healthy as you would want for yourself, however you define that, what would that look like? Imagine all those whys that you have being fulfilled. And imagine that you have achieved it. See yourself there, achieving all your whys. Maybe even dream a little bigger. Like, what could you do now that you are feeling this healthy? So, in this place where you are exactly how you can dream you can be with health, maybe your body looks the way you want it to, you have all the energy that you want, and all those whys met and beyond. How would you feel? And use those feeling words. And it doesn't mean that they are feeling words, they're whatever words link you to that feeling. And then see yourself moving through your day with this new way of being. What do you do differently? What is really exciting and awesome in your life? What choices might you make differently from this new place? How does it feel to be in this space of making good choices for yourself and appreciating the goal you've reached? And how do you feel about yourself? And take a deep breath and come back when you're ready. If you happen to have a notebook or something around, I encourage you to write down some of those feelings. Or you can pop them in the chat. We love to read that stuff. Awesome. Who was able to imagine that? Not everybody can, and that's okay. Okay, we're alone. And this is why we do it several times, but it took us like 4 minutes. So this is something that you can imagine on your own, and it's a little deeper than the why. And we're wondering, what does this have anything to do with my identity, Christina? These dang feelings. Because these feelings tell us, again, our desires. That's how we really want to feel. And every year I have my clients do this, and when they first come to me, and here, nice, and here is what happens is that these feeling words are actually our intentions. So this year for mine are bold, open, love, right? I choose 3 to 5, the 3 to 5 that excite you the most, and they might feel too big. We love those. The feelings are, those become our identity. How do I identify? Bold, open, and love. Those are the feelings that I want to feel. So what does that mean for me? They become my focus. This is my thriving focus because that is what I'm actually looking for. Sure, there might be, a big old farm on my vision board or happy grandkids or I don't know, 100 other things, a healthy woman, right? And healthy words and possibilities that I have. But what I really want out of that is to feel bold, to feel open, and to feel love. So, how do we use these as an identity is the big question, right? Like what does this mean, Christina? It means that if I want to be happy or bold, open, and love when I get there, then I have to live bold, open, and love now. And that means I'm not putting on a mask. I'm actually stretching into what I want, not just what I think it looks like for me to want, but what I actually want. So if I want to feel those ways when I get there, that means today I need to make choices to feel love, to feel open and feel bold. And so this comes down to there's several different ways that we align to this feeling. And this is really what I call practical manifestation, right? Like I have really a good target on what it is that I want, that those feelings. And now I can align to it. So we align our goals to that. If my goals don't feel like bold, open, or love, I don't want them. They don't fit anymore, right? So this starts helping me take all of those things that I think I should do off my list that actually aren't really important to me. Because if they were important, there would be bold, open, and love there somewhere. Maybe not all three, but something would trigger me and go, yep, that's the right choice. So this is a way of our inner wisdom kind of aligning us to what we want. And we know that when we're more aligned to what we want, we get more of what we want. It's kind of like karma. The better karma I put out, the better karma I get back. It's about as woo-woo as I get. But our everyday choices, right? So bold, open, and love means that I change the way I do things. Bold to me is like I used to eat lunch here at my home by myself. My husband's on a different schedule. But bold now means I'm actually going to go meet those people I can collaborate with, and I'm going to have lunch with them. Bold might mean I'm going to make a really healthy choice even when I want a cheeseburger, right? I mean, those to me feel bold, and you get to define them for yourself. This is about self-validating. The greatest thing about living from these intentions and creating this new identity for myself is that I can self-validate. I don't know about you, but I've created lots of goal setting and achieving was something I mastered in my 20s. And when the goal came, if it came with a blue bow instead of a red bow, I would like suddenly think it was a disaster. It didn't meet my expectations. So what would I do? I would shame and blame myself. I should have known. I should have done that. I could have, would have, right? And hindsight's 2020. And that's pretty much how I was raised. So that's what I continued. But now that I look at it, what I can say about the goals that even when they don't come out the way that I want them to, well, did I show up being bold? Did I show up open? Did I show up with love? If I did those, then I feel really good about how I put in, because I'm the only thing that I actually control, right? There's other people and circumstances and things that I try to control often. I don't know about you, but I sure can try, but that doesn't do anything for me. But judging myself on what I actually can do, how I showed up, how I made choices, did I show up in the identity that I'm thriving for rather than surviving? Then I can feel really good about myself, and I don't need external validation, and I don't need to shame or blame myself for things I don't control. And so I can feel confident about making these choices. We can also, what I think is one of the most important parts of aligning is I start infusing these feelings into my day on purpose, right? So I put something on my calendar to make me have to be bold so that I can prove to myself, right? Yes, I can be bold. Absolutely. Or I put something on my calendar to help me feel open. For me, dance does that. So there's dance party breaks in my day because that's going to help me feel open, right? And love could just be me reading a love letter that my husband sent me years and years ago, right? So these are little ways that I can infuse what I want into my day so that if that's my happy, I can be happy now. I don't have to feel like I'm focused on the sacrifice so that I can get to happy. Because if we're not feeling those ways now, we're not going to feel that way when we get there. And if we do, it's like for 30 seconds and then we're on to a new goal trying to get that new thing, that new achievement, right? And so that's how I lived my life and it felt pretty icky. And so if we focus on what we actually need to thrive, our desired feelings, then we can actually use that as our identity. Actually, this is who I am. Because surviving identities are usually like, I'm a hard worker. You know what that identity brought me was I had to make everything hard. I had to do hard work in order to achieve that identity. I don't have to do anything to feel bold, open, or love. I can just feel them now, right? So that's how this becomes a way that we do this. And you might be thinking, let's look at some of these. Freedom and relief. I had a client just a few weeks ago, just started with me. And when I took her through this version, but for my program, it's a little bit more extended, um, she was like, she had all these achievement words. And then I was like, okay, but if you achieved all that, if that was already complete, how would you feel? And she was like, freedom. And I was like, what is that? And she goes, that feels too scary and big. I can't live like I'm free. I got a lot of responsibilities. And I'm like, whoa, that's the right word. And she's been using that word for like a month now. And she's like, actually, it's very helpful. Because when she comes up to those decisions of should I work later to add that one more project on, or can I go take a hot bath or go play a game with my kids? She is now like breaking from her workaholicness, which I know a lot of us can have. And many of us who are really good warrior archetypes, work is just as much of an addiction for us as drugs or alcohol is for a different type of addict. And so it's just a way that we distract ourselves because it's something we can do and we know how to do it. And so we have sometimes more confidence there. So just letting us know that if these are your feelings, content and relaxed, then don't I have to make choices for content and relaxed? If that's what I really desire, why am I not making choices for that now? And I know that a lot of us are going to be like, well, I'm too busy. I was really busy too. And I had to make some hard choices. Did I think I should do all the things in my life? Yes, I did think I should. Did I feel aligned to a lot of them? Not a lot of them. Today I do, because this is how I've been living for 10 years. And it gets easier over time. So I know that this process seems a little bit, some people call it woo-woo. I'm really not a woo-woo person. I'm behind science. Like I like it a lot, but it does seem like a little bit different than how we have been taught to live our lives. But I just want to recap for you real quickly about what this process looks like. So finding your why, right? Which I'm not sure if Faye takes you through that, but I'm sure that just signing up for a program, you're like, I need to know why I'm doing this if I'm going to put my energy and my investment in it, right? And so you know your whys. Get below that why to your feelings and decide how would it feel if I actually achieve that? Because that is something that we can bring now. And three, align to that feeling with our goals, with our choices, purposely infusing those feelings into our day. I often see open, love, and bold as like, anybody see Sleeping Beauty, the original? I think there was like three fairies there, Miss Merryweather and two others. I always see them as a fairy, and one is bold, one is open, one is love. And they all show up differently, right? Because they have different personalities, obviously, the three of them would. But those are my identities, and they become like my fairy godmothers. And so when I have a choice to make, I kind of can consult them, and they'd be like, well, I'd do this, and I'd do this, and I'd do this. And then I can make the best choice out of that that feels right for me. And there's a lot more tools that I have. So if you have questions, I would love to hear them because I rarely get questions because people get stumped by this. But if you have questions, I would love to hear them and if I could answer them. Maybe Faye, maybe you have a question.
I do, but first of all, I want to thank you, Christina. That's such an empowering exercise to do, and we've done something similar. I've asked the girls and the guys to think about their values, and very similarly, are they
Mm.
living in those values? So very similar. Didn't do the visualization part, but I'm all for that. I'm probably a little bit more woo woo than you, but also got the science. I do like the science back in it as well. The question I've got is, this is very helpful when you're in a clear kind of headspace. But
Mm.
let's say my goal is to get healthy because I want freedom to be able to go and do stuff like hike in Colorado or
Mhm.
something like that. So what if I'm in like a really bad mood? Work has annoyed me. I'm stressed out. I don't even want to think about choosing the salad that's going to help me, have the freedom to do these. And all I want to do is stuff my face with chocolate, and feel sorry for myself. I know I shouldn't be doing it. And I know my freedom is there and it's saying, yes, you want to be free. How do you get back into that zone? Is it a case of doing the
Mm.
body scanning again? Like, what were your kind of recommendations?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I want us to understand that both and. I always think it's both and. Like, yes, I can recognize that I'm sitting in my wounded child space. I talk about archetypes with my coaching a lot, but in this space of feeling like not enough or if the world's too much, I don't want to feel responsible, right? Like on those days, I just kind of want to light a match and burn the whole world down, those kinds of days. We have compassion for ourselves, right? We have compassion for the fact that we're human. And yeah, I really want to eat a whole box of chocolates, or I really want to skip my workout or whatever. So there's a lot of practical ways that, I mean, depending on what it is that you can get through. But often I say, let me wait 10 minutes, first of all. Because usually, or like if it's like for me, the big one is I don't want to exercise. I don't know why. I always feel better when I'm done. And yet it's the thing that I have to motivate myself into doing the most. And so I often say to myself on those really, really bad days, usually I just try to Mel Robbins it, which is like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just go do the damn thing instead of thinking about it, right? Because that's where it is. We're stuck in the thinking. Um, and okay, Christina, do it for 15 minutes. If you really hate it at the end of 15 minutes, then don't do it anymore. Then this is not the day for that, right? So I might challenge myself, But if it's a really, really bad day, I can also give myself compassion that, yeah, I really want to feel bold, open, and love, but I'm feeling frustrated and angry and whatever is going on, right? And then allowing myself to feel that. So here's the thing about feelings and emotional intelligence. Feelings don't hurt us. It's the thought process that we have that puts us on that suffering spiral that we start like bringing up. Yeah, well, even in eighth grade, I did that thing, like we start telling ourselves all these stories about how I can't, I won't, it's impossible. That's from our child kind of space. And we can tell because we usually want to go into the fetal position, put a blanket over our heads, right? But that's from the child position. So if we can step into the more empowered part of us, we can hold both of those going, yeah, I feel this has been a really crap day. And I want to do one thing that'll bring on the feeling of love for me. Doesn't mean I'm going to magically feel love, right? That's not the thing. But I'm going to do my best. Like that's me showing up for myself because we're only responsible for how we show up for ourselves. That's really all we can do in the world. Yeah, how we show up for other people, that's part of like, we're not all selfish and greedy. So part of us wanting to be of service in the world, I think most of us have that. And so it's not about not thinking about other people, but only controlling myself, right? So if we can step into that empowered part of ourselves and then think, yeah, I'm feeling this way and still thriving means I focus on what I actually want, not give all the attention to what I don't want. And the stories, that's the big thing that you're talking about, I think, is that we have all these stories going on about I'm not good enough, the world sucks, whatever. Those are the things that are keeping us in this feeling. So we want to hold this. I'm not saying ignore it because it's important to know how we're feeling. That's informative. I'm feeling like the world's crap today. Great, because things aren't going my way. Of course I feel that way. And we're complex enough to say, and I still have my eye on bold, open, and love. But sometimes that love might be allowing myself to have a brat day, right? Just being a brat and not wanting to do the things I want to do or I think I should do for myself. And then really noticing, okay, well, what did that actually do for me? I mean, I used to smoke a long time ago, and it was like the change came when I was like, this cigarette isn't changing my life. You know what I mean? I think that it's just giving me a moment of reprieve and habit and whatnot, but it's not actually changing my life for the better, right? If anything, it's like an abusive boyfriend. It's a bad relationship. And so I could get through that by saying, okay, well, this is more that what I want to thrive is much more important than me staring at all the things the gluten and the sugar that I can't have, right? That is more important. So we have to get to this empowered part of ourselves that says thriving is more important than surviving. And there's still going to be human days. Like on all my emails, it always says, be gentle with your humanness because it's so important for us to remember that we're human and not robots. It would be great if we could just put a new program in and we just started doing, and my husband's the closest to that. He gets on any bandwagon, he gets on a routine and he never stops. I am the opposite. I'm the latest adopter you will ever find. I need proof. I need examples. I need to know that it works before I will change anything in my life. I need to have a long list of whys in order to change anything. So I really relate to that wounded small part of us. And luckily, this has been one of the tools that I use to be my empowered self. Sorry if that was a very long answer.
Always very, very well thought out. I think it's helpful for people to know that you don't have to always be in that state. The thrive state is it's
Possible.
impossible. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's not about being perfect. It doesn't mean that every moment of my life is boldness. I am an introvert. That would be extremely exhausting. So it doesn't mean that every moment of your life you have to feel that, but in a moment, if I'm about to do a workshop or something and I want to pull up, what do I want? I want to show up bold, open, and with lots of love. Great, I can do that. So it's good for the times where we're not feeling the way that we want to feel, because we remind ourselves, right, this is actually who I am. This is actually what I want. And it's great for the times that we're doing really great. Great. Then, what can I do even more that will expand this feeling that I have?
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you don't have to, you may have these big goals, but that doesn't mean that you'll be there tomorrow. It means you can just do the little one, two, or three things today, tomorrow. There's three choices, one, two, or three choices that will actually, if you continue to do them, will compound and get into that, eventual goal. And I think it's really important as well to say that those three words can change. And I'm sure, Christina, yours have changed multiple times, maybe every few months, maybe every day, maybe every year. But it is that we are fluid with these as well. And we don't quit. We don't change them because they're too hard or we just can't be bothered. We change them because it's not us anymore. We're not in alignment with it. I think that's really important to know that we don't fail because we pivot.
Yes, so I usually request that people keep their words for at least 6 months, because what
Mm.
happens is it gets hard, because as we try to align with them, our old defaults that we used to do are going to come in conflict with them. I mean, that's just because if we were doing what we wanted, if we were doing the things that were aligned with it before, we'd already be there. So, yeah, so keep them for 6 months. Sometimes I have people tweak them just to make them a little bit more perfect, or not, I don't like the word perfect, but a little bit, more uh, definitive about what it is for them. But we really don't want to change them for at least 6 months and just see how they work. I mean, you can always be like, well, now I've made this major change in my life. Like maybe I'm getting a divorce or something and I'm becoming a different person. Great. You can always revisit them. My clients revisit them every year. Sometimes they stay the same and sometimes they don't. This year, I really shortened mine. I used to have like double word kind of phrases. But I have a client right now where her feeling word is unleash the real me. And it's like, so it doesn't have to be a feeling word. What I do, some of the parameters around it is we don't want to include another person because we don't control that. So admired, loved, respected. Those are words where we require somebody else to not only love, admire, and respect us, but we actually have to believe that they do. So that gets all kinds of, I'm out of control of a lot of that stuff, right? So I usually ask them to change it to a noun, like I don't have loved, I have love. Because if we want love, what do we have to do? Give love, right? Like I believe in that like kind of karmic thing. The other thing is ing words. We love to put really masculine words like focus and determination, and while those are great, they're very masculine words and they're less feeling, more thinking kind of words. And they mean I kind of have to do something in order to feel that way. And I don't want you to have to do anything to feel that way. I want you just to be able to bring that up. So if I put like productive, it would mean like, oh, if I want to feel productive, here I go. I have to add something else on my task list and go do it. I don't want that. So, and again, with the ing words, turn it into the noun love instead of loving, admiration instead of admiring. Um, and yeah, I think those are basically the only rules. I just don't want you to have to do anything to earn it, because we don't have to earn it. We already have it within us, or else we wouldn't be able to come up with the word.
And what if someone can't think or can't get deep enough, I guess, to think about it, to identify them? And also, what if they have identified something, but they don't believe that A, they'll ever get there, or B, they deserve to get there?
Yeah, yeah, I like those questions. I'm going to answer the second one first, and then you're going to have to remember to remind me of the first one. Um, but what if they don't believe that that they can get there, right? Um, hmm. So freedom. So we start seeing how we can take little steps there. Like I had one woman who superstar was her word, right? Like she had a feeling that went with superstar. And so could she see herself as a superstar a day? No. I mean, that felt really hard. But she could show up and do things that would help her feel like a superstar. For her, maybe it was getting her hair done, maybe it was getting a new dress, maybe it was writing. She journaled a lot about her success, right? And about what success meant to her and what that really felt like, right? And so there are things that we can, it's the little steps towards it. It's like you said, there's no overnight sensations when it comes to this personal growth work, but it's stretching a little bit, a little bit. I am guaranteeing you that the bold word I had on January 1 is not going to look like the bold word I'm going to like it, my boldness is going to look much different on December 1st of this year than it did at the beginning of this year. Because although we don't see these tiny little steps that we're taking, they make a huge difference overall. So as long as I stay aligned to it, and this has happened so many times. I think divine trust was one of my words one year. And in the beginning of the year, I was feeling lost. And by the end of the year, I was like, oh, I can trust the divine. Like I can just trust that things are going to work out because what we're doing is, oh, and this answers the other question. What we're doing is we're collecting new evidence. So all of our life, we've been so focused on survival that looking at those scary things has been our reality, right? So we've collected all this evidence as to why we have to be careful, why we have to be huge risk managers, why things aren't going to work out the way that we want them to, why we're not enough, why we're too much, whatever that thing is for us. Instead, now we're focused on what we actually want. So they say, you see what you look for. And so what I'm doing now with my words is I am collecting evidence as to not only how am I bold, open, and love, but how is the world showing up like bold, open, and love? And then I start seeing more opportunities for that. So you may not know the exact steps. I didn't know how it would look for me to get to self or to divine trust, but the universe knew I'm going to clobber her a few times and see if she can just continue to trust throughout. I believe, I believe divine trust was during the COVID year. So, so I'm just going to believe that everything's going to work out the way that it's supposed to work out, whether it's something I want or not, right? And I really learned the world really does show up like that for us. So if we're looking for red cars, we're going to see red cars everywhere. If we're looking for white Jeeps, we're going to find the white Jeeps. And so it's really about stretching into that thought process and being like, well, being curious rather than judgmental. And, how can bold show up? How can open show up? Even my dreams about what bold will bring me this year are going to be different than how it actually shows up. But I'm going to know that if I showed up that way, I'm going to feel really good about myself, regardless of the outcome, because I did what I could control, which is just me.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of how people, if they want to lose weight, they'll focus on that, even though they can't control the scale, they can't control their weight. They just need to turn up, they need to eat, what they quote unquote should, whatever that looks like for that day or that week or whatever. They need to, get good sleep and look after themselves. And those are the things that they control to an extent. Not maybe not the
Mhm.
sleep if you've got kids, but generally we can get ourselves in a best position possible. But if you're always looking at the scale as a reflection of this is success, then you're never going to get to the goal. You need to focus on exactly what you said. How can I do my best today to get to wherever I want to get to eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. And these little steps, like how and most of us don't say when we're feeling, we're not like, I'd lighter. Like, I mean, maybe some of us would come up with that word, but if you were lighter, what would that feel like? Right. And to me, it might be energetic or radiant or glowing or whatever that thing is for us, confident. Right. So getting underneath to the feeling that we actually want and then saying, well, how can I feel that way now? It doesn't mean that I lose my motivation to become there. It means that if I want to feel happy when I get there, I have to make happy choices now. I have to make happy goals that are going to make me happy, right? And the goals might be hard. I mean, it's not like I had energetic one time. It's not like just because I had the word energetic, I felt like getting up and going to exercise. I certainly did not. It just reminded me that if I want to feel that way, I have to keep putting this in. I believe that I mean, I have evidence in my life, in my client's life, that when we put that energy out there and when we put that feeling out there, that as long as we align to it, we actually get a ton of that back, because we used to just start collecting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you say, it doesn't have to be comfortable. You need the discomfort to stretch. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be painful per se, but a little bit of
Yeah.
discomfort doesn't hurt anybody.
Not about risking your safety. Like every time my clients get in that part where they're like, oh my God, then I'm gonna have to, I'm like, hold on. Is this unsafe or uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And the good news is uncomfortable is a growth spot. And it doesn't mean that we can't change some of those steps to be more loving. You know, when I had energetic and exercise was like I had to do more exercise. Well, I could dance. Dancing is fun for me. Like I can infuse fun into the thing. Like there's even yoga workouts where I'll play some heavy metal while I'm doing a yoga workout, even though she's listening to whatever. I turn that voice down, turn on my own music, whatever it is I feel like, right? So even if the goal is hard, we can infuse our intentions into the steps that we take to get there. Great. I didn't like cooking for a long time because I was raised, latchkey kid. Everything came out of a box and had instructions on it. And so learning to cook with whole foods was challenging for me. And the whole, like my growing up in the kitchen was a bad place. Like if you were there, there was just bad vibes. My husband's the opposite. His kitchen was like where all the family met and loved each other and had a good time. And so he really taught me how to have more fun in the kitchen, whether that's playing music or goofing off with someone or doing silly things that aren't efficient or productive, which is what I was taught. Well, yeah, if that makes it more, if that brings your happy to the task, then that's what you want to do. Yeah, that's so
Perfect.
much
Thank
the
you,
heart.
Christina. Thank you. Does
Yeah.
anyone have any questions before we let Christina go? I appreciate your time. I've really
Mhm.
enjoyed this.
Awesome.
Where can people find you, Christina, if they want to like listen to a podcast or
Yeah,
Facebook,
my
wherever?
podcast is at invitingshift.com. I have a little toolkit that you're welcome to sign up for. I'll put in the chat. But that'll have more of this. There's some visualizations there. There's also exercises about really finding the evidence that, like, for me to find evidence, like, where am I already open, bold, and love, right? And so I have an exercise in there that has about strengths and gifts so that you can find all of the things that are already about you that
Hmm.
really go along with the feeling that you have. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. I will post this in the show notes and in our groups and everything as well, this link here.
Awesome.
And a link to your podcast as well, actually, in case anybody wants to do some more digging and self-development there. But everyone in the chat is thanking you. They're very appreciative of your time as well.
I appreciate you all. Thank you for tuning in till the end. I know that I can talk a lot, but I don't think people see the power of this as much as it is. It's so powerful. I've had a client, she's just in her third year, and she's like, oh my God, I don't think I ever got how powerful this is. And just in the last 2 months, like amazing things have happened for her because she has the exact right words now, and it's really helping her move forward. And she's got a lot of challenges.
Yeah,
So, yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share this with your group.
no problem. Thank you so much, Christina. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.